for heaven's sake. Let's talk to Elliot Keck, Head of Campaigns at Taxpayers Alliance. Elliot, very good morning to you.
Morning, mate.
Hard to imagine that it can get worse, but it keeps doing it somehow.
Yeah, and I think it's going to get a whole lot worse in November, and what the Chancellor is clearly planning to do is to come after your property wealth and your family's property wealth. The one person whose property wealth might be shielded looks like it could be the Deputy Prime Minister.
Yeah, I mean, that is the thing. What's your view on how she gets out of this, if in fact she does get out of it? My thinking is she doesn't get out of this.
I think it's very difficult. You know, I've always wondered ever since she entered office why, as the person responsible for solving the housing crisis, she wasn't banging on Rachel Reeves's door demanding stamp duty be abolished, given stamp duty is such a driver of the housing crisis. And it seems that the reason why she hasn't been doing that is she doesn't actually understand how stamp duty works, and as a result she's fallen foul of some of the unbelievably complex rules around stamp duty.
Yeah, but it's not that complex. I mean, I know people that have bought houses recently. You know, I've bought houses, and you know roughly what the stamp duty is going to be, particularly since the government focused everybody's mind on it last November by saying it was going up. So a lot of people that I've been speaking to this year have not moved house because they didn't want to pay the extra stamp duty, so they knew about it.
Yeah, that's right. They obviously cut the amount of relief that first-time buyers get. They increased the surcharge that you have to pay if you buy a second property.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about here with Angela Rayner. The issue that she's had is she thought she was buying a primary residence because she'd moved her former property into a trust for her child. But if you move a property into a trust for your child and they're under 18, then that still essentially counts as your primary residence. Therefore, you still have to pay that additional surcharge, and that's the rule that she's fallen foul of. But it was her responsibility, as you said, like the friends that you mentioned, it was her responsibility to know those rules. Given she's the housing minister, she really should know those rules, and that's why it's pretty unacceptable that she's fallen foul.
Quite. And also, there's a lot of anomalies in her account of what happens, right? I mean, the Sun have got some great questions to ask her about today, including, you know, can you please name the tax relief experts that gave you the wrong advice? And if you can't name them, why can't you name them? And when did you realise that you had not paid enough tax? And also, you say that she wanted to change her primary residence, but equally she lists the house in Manchester as her primary residence for council tax purposes, even though she now claims she doesn't really own as much of it as she used to. It's not clear how much of it she still owns.
Yeah, it's a whole mess, and essentially what we're seeing from Angela Rayner is someone trying to use as many loopholes and exemptions and allowances as they can in the tax system to limit how much tax they pay. That's something that people up and down the country are forced to do because of our terrible tax system. It's a tax system that she is partly responsible for, and her colleagues are responsible for. If she thinks the tax system is so bad that she's having to use all of these different loopholes and make all these different manoeuvres, she should be talking to Rachel Reeves and, you know, ideally maybe joining the Taxpayers Alliance to campaign for the fairer, simpler tax system that we deserve.
Well, quite. I mean, also, let's not forget she was talking to a wealth management service. Now, you don't talk to wealth management services unless you're trying to avoid paying some kind of tax. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and it looks like the reason why she's setting up a trust for her child and putting that property into it, one of the reasons why you do that is to help avoid inheritance tax. Yeah. What has her government done towards people trying to avoid inheritance tax by, for example, through, you know, agricultural property, businesses and pensions? They've removed the exemption from that, and they're coming after family farms, businesses and pensions ruthlessly. So, you know, it is clearly one rule for them and one rule for everybody else, and it's going to really smack of hypocrisy.
Well, let's play you a little clip here. This is from Keir Starmer on politicians that avoid tax.
A politician who seeks to avoid the taxes they owe in this country is not fit to be in charge of taxpayer money.
Seems like a pretty straightforward point of view, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, Angela Rayner said many things very, very similar. I think she said that every pound not paid in tax is going to amount to lives lost, and £40,000 of unpaid stamp duty, you know, that's almost enough to pay for the starting salary and pension of a nurse. So, you know, maybe she'll be thinking about it in that terms. Of course, nobody should pay any more tax than is absolutely necessary, but she has clearly underpaid tax in this case. Not
in the slightest, but also having asked to put more taxes on people, as you've just explained, whether it's inheritance tax, whether it's a new property tax they're talking about, a mansion tax of some kind or other, putting up council tax once again, you know, putting all manner of taxes on farmers, on businesses, on national insurance. You know, it's like she doesn't want to pay the extra tax that she's putting everybody else through.
Yeah, exactly. And she needs to maybe go to hospitality businesses in her constituency. I don't know which constituency that is now, whether it's Hove or Ashton.
Well, it's still up in Manchester as far as we know, although it was suggested to me that maybe she was looking to get a new constituency in Hove because it might be a safer seat.
But yeah, it is certainly suspicious, isn't it? But she should go and talk to those businesses and ask them about how damaging the national insurance rise has been, and recognise that the reason why she's trying to avoid paying that tax is just because of how painful it is. And, you know, it's now her responsibility to become one of the leading campaigners for tax reform, and that's why I absolutely invite her to join the Taxpayers Alliance in our campaign work.
It's a very good idea. Let's just remind ourselves of what she said to Sky News yesterday.
Expert counsel advice on all of my affairs to ensure that everything was done proper, and that expert counsel said that the advice that I received was inaccurate because of the trust. I don't own the property, that is true. I only own one property that is mortgaged, like most people, but because of the nature of the trust that was set up by the court, that I would be liable to pay the additional stamp duty. As soon as I knew that that was the case, I have alerted and referred myself to the independent advisor on the ministerial code to ensure that they can look transparently at what's happened, and also contacted HMRC to say that there is additional tax owing on this and that I'm prepared to pay that and fully comply with the HMRC as well.
Yes. Other questions that still remain unanswered. Did you actively aim to avoid paying additional stamp duty by ensuring you had no interest in your constituency home? And second, did you ever seek advice from government lawyers or inform your department about the stamp duty issue?
Yeah, and you know, I bet she's now looking back to when the Conservatives were in government and thinking, maybe if I'd been a little less holier than thou, maybe if I hadn't appointed myself the judge, jury and executioner of every Conservative politician accused of even a whiff of wrongdoing, often even not wrongdoing, even often just you know, things that looked bad, maybe she wouldn't be in this situation. But you know, the chickens are coming home to roost, Mike.
Well, they really are, and the chickens aren't happy either, because the chickens have been you know, starved to death for quite a long time. Elliot, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Elliot Keck, Head of Campaigns at the Taxpayers Alliance.